What's up everyone and welcome back to the World History Channel. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button today. Let's get started. 13 things you've never heard about Grace O'Malley, the most badass lady pirate contrary to popular belief. Not all pirates hobbled on peg legs with talking parrots perched on their shoulders, patches covering their eyes, and broad West Country accents sharpening their vowels. One of the most important, fascinating, and relatively forgotten pirates was actually a woman, known to history as the so-called Pirate Queen. There have been other female pirates in history, but perhaps none have been as significant as Grain and Hale, better known by her Irish name Grace O'Malley, which is an anglicised version of her name. She was born in Western Ireland around 1530. Though brought up in a life of relative privilege and wealth, she also faced limitations on her ambitions. The Ireland of her birth was one of eroding independence, as England sought to exert more and more influence over the island to its west. O'Malley, like all pirates, was politically involved. Her business got caught up in the politics of Ireland and Tudor England. Today she is even remembered as a rebel and symbol of Irish resistance and independence in the face of English colonization. By the time of her death in around 1603, she had become one of the most significant and powerful women in all of Ireland. This female pirate was chieftain of her clan, captain of her ships, and badass extraordinaire. She was not only the most important woman pirate in history, she was also a mother, a wife, a lover, a political actor, a business manager, and a folk hero throughout her lengthy and varied life. She was a powerful Irish chieftain's daughter. Grace's story is not exactly a rags to riches one, like it is for some pirates. On the contrary, she was born into a life of privilege. Owen Black Oak O'Malley was the clan's chieftain, and he was her father. They were known for being tough seafarers and lived in County Mayo, Western Ireland. The family motto was Terra Americae Putans, or valiant by sea and land. They even got some of their income from acts of piracy and plunder, so Grace was born into piracy. As the daughter of an important seafaring clan leader, Grace probably learned how to sail at a young age, and she was in an important position within her clan group. She may have disguised herself as a boy to go to sea. Given her family's business on the sea, Grace probably developed a love of sailing as a child. Legend has it that she wanted to join her father on a voyage at a young age, but her parents refused to let her go. Defiant even as a child, young Grace wouldn't take no for an answer, so she chopped off her hair and disguised herself as a boy to sneak on the ship. She was successful in both of her marriages. In her roughly 70 living years, a long time in the 16th century, Grace O'Malley married twice. Through her first husband, Donald O'Flaherty, O'Malley learned much about the art of war. Additionally, the couple had 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. Donald's death in the early 1560s meant that O'Malley had become a respected widow. But for O'Malley, the loss of one husband only meant that there was room to take on another. So in 1566, she married Richard Burke to gain a castle. Legend says that she gave birth to her son while fighting on a ship. Soon after marrying Richard Burke in 1566, O'Malley became pregnant. The delivery of her third son is the stuff of legends. According to legend, O'Malley and her fleet were at sea at the time. She gave birth to her son Theobald on board her ship. Although both the mother and the child were able to survive the birth, the ship was attacked by corsairs just an hour later, posing a further threat. As the battle got underway, O'Malley supposedly tucked her newborn safely away in her cabin and unleashed hell on the attackers. She led her men to a victory that day. She became a chieftain in her own right. When her father died, she took over a rare feat in an era when there were comparatively few female leaders. She took control of her father's ships and became the O'Malley clan's chief. However, Grace's influence extended beyond her own family and business. She formed an important family bond when she married Donald O'Flaherty in 1546 when she was 15 or 16 years old. So deeply was she respected by her first husband's men that many of them continued to fight for her even after Donald's death. She opposed the English tax system by imposing her own pirate taxes. The business that O'Malley inherited as head of the clan included a form of piracy, but she became more overt in her activities in response to English interference in Ireland. As the English increased taxes on goods her company traded, O'Malley attempted to make up for it by in turn imposing her own sea tax on passing ships. She could strategically monitor the seas from her coastal castles. She would then lead her ships to overtake passing ones, demanding payment for safe passage. If the ship refused, it would be raided. Grace took advantage of everyone. Irish, English, Spanish, and even Turkish ships fell prey to her raids. She was way more educated than your typical, run-of-the-mill pirate. Her position in life meant that she had access to education and learning, something that probably could not be said for the sailors who went to sea with her. Historians agree that she had some formal education and counted Latin as a second language. Whether or not she spoke English is unknown. When she met with Queen Elizabeth I, she got what she wanted. In 1593, O'Malley went to London to have an audience with Queen Elizabeth I of England. She travelled across the Irish Sea to petition the Queen to help her. Her problems with Sir Richard Bingham, the English governor of Western Ireland, had mounted, since he suspected O'Malley of attempting to resist English rule. In the wake of a rebellion in Western Ireland in the 1580s, he had confiscated some of O'Malley's property and even imprisoned her. The final straw came in 1593, when Bingham took her sons as captives. The meeting between O'Malley and the English Queen was said to have taken place in Latin, a language which both women spoke fluently. O'Malley did not bow down to the English Queen because she did not recognize her authority. The Queen granted O'Malley her requests, provided she promised not to rebel against the crown. She broke up with her second husband by shouting through an open window. Her marriage to Richard Burke was brief, about a year, enough time to give birth to a son and secure O'Malley prime real estate. After the year was up, O'Malley more or less dropped her husband like a hot cake. According to legend, she unceremoniously announced her divorce to Burke by yelling out of an open window, "Richard Burke, I dismiss you." She may have once attacked a castle to avenge her murdered lover. In the 1560s, between her marriages, legend has it that O'Malley rescued a survivor from a shipwreck. Though some claim he was Hugh de Lacy, the man's actual identity remains unknown. O'Malley and the man soon became lovers. O'Malley's business had alienated and enraged a number of rival Irish clans, including the McMahons, who saw in O'Malley's new lover an opportunity. McMahon agents tracked down the man while he was hunting and murdered him. O'Malley was furious. After tracking down and killing the culprits, she sieged the McMahons' Donna Castle, ultimately claiming the castle for herself. The English kidnapped and murdered her son. Sir Richard Bingham, the English governor of Western Ireland, had become the bane of O'Malley's existence. He explicitly targeted O'Malley and considered her to be someone who was fueling rebellion in Ireland. However, when Bingham's brother John was successful in luring Owen, the son of O'Malley, out of his castle and stealing his cattle, the situation escalated. John Bingham tied Owen up and later killed him in the confusion. She worked with the English but only strategically. By the 16th century, England had had an interest in Ireland for centuries, and those policies only increased under the Tudor administration. O'Malley resented English interference and sought independence from these political constraints. She often butted heads with the English governor in Western Ireland, Sir Richard Bingham, as he employed brutal tactics to crush resistance to English rule. At the same time, O'Malley was willing to play their game. In 1577, for example, she loaned men and ships to the English. The Pirate Queen became an Irish folk hero. One thing is for certain: Grace O'Malley was a figure of unusual proportions, even though much of her life is still shrouded in myth and legend. Famous English poet Sir Philip Sidney was reportedly quite taken with the chieftainess from County Mayo. Even in her own lifetime, she had earned the nickname the Pirate Queen by people in Western Ireland. 13 facts about Grace O'Malley, the most badass lady pirate you've never heard of. Contrary to popular belief, not all pirates hobbled around on peg legs, swillied rum like water, sported cartoonish parrots on their shoulders, or spoke in the dramatic, gravelly tones of a Johnny Depp impersonator. Some of history's most formidable pirates defied all those clichés. None more so than Grace O'Malley, a fierce Irish pirate queen who has largely been erased from the pages of mainstream history. Born around 1530 in County Mayo, Ireland, Grain and I'm Hale, as she was known in Gaelic, was no ordinary woman and certainly no ordinary pirate. She was born into a seafaring clan and became one of the most legendary, influential, and powerful women in Irish history. Not to mention one of the most badass pirates to ever live, male or female. Despite the danger, bloodshed, and political turmoil that surrounded her, she lived to a ripe old age, likely dying in 1603, managing in her lifetime to become a warrior, rebel, clan chieftain, wife, mother, political strategist, and full-blown folk hero. While her contemporaries in Europe were grappling with the fallout of Henry VIII's Reformation or marveling over the latest works of Shakespeare, O'Malley was commanding fleets, attacking English forts, marrying for strategic advantage, divorcing by shouting out windows, and giving birth on pirate ships during battle. One of the most impressive facts about her is that she didn't rise from poverty like many pirates. She was born into privilege, the daughter of Owen Black Oak O'Malley, the powerful leader of the O'Malley clan, who controlled significant portions of the West Irish coast and made much of their money from both legitimate trade and piracy. From a young age, Grace likely learned how to navigate treacherous waters, command men, and fight. Her clan's motto, Terra Americae Potens, meant powerful by land and sea, and Grace took it seriously. Legend even says she was so determined to sail that she once chopped off her hair and dressed as a boy to sneak aboard a ship her father was captaining, a kind of 16th century Mulan move. Her parents, unimpressed, initially told her no because sailing wasn't fit for a girl. Grace's response: disguise herself and get on the ship anyway, proving from the very beginning that she wasn't interested in doing what was expected of her. As a young woman, she married Donald O'Flaherty, a union that was politically advantageous but also gave her valuable experience in warfare and raiding. She had 3 children with Donald, and when he died in the early 1560s, unlike other women her age, she didn't just sit around as a widow. She took over his holdings and retained the loyalty of many of his men, eventually becoming the de facto leader of her own fleet. Later, in 1566, she married Richard Burke for a year. Literally just a year, and mostly to acquire a strategically placed castle. After the year was up, she reportedly dismissed him by standing at the castle window and yelling, "Richard Burke, I dismiss you." That is about as straightforward as it gets. Her life is full of such stories, many of them so wild that they sound made up, but are grounded in historical fact. For example, it's said that she gave birth to her son Theobald while at sea, and mere hours later led her men into battle against corsairs, tucking her newborn safely in the ship's cabin before storming the deck to slash, stab, and command her way to victory. She was more than just a pirate. She was also a clan chieftain. Upon her father's death, she assumed leadership of the O'Malley clan, an extraordinary feat at a time when women were rarely permitted to hold power in such capacities. But Grace wasn't a typical woman, and her people respected her strength, cunning, and command of the seas. She established dominance along the Irish coast, constructed a network of castles and lookout towers, and imposed her own pirate taxation, all of which extended her control far beyond her inherited lands. If ships passed through waters she controlled, they had to pay her a toll or risk being raided. These weren't just Irish or English ships, either. Grace would raid Spanish, Turkish, and any foreign vessels that dared to cross her without tribute. She was a thief who took advantage of everyone. Her daring wasn't limited to the sea. She was deeply entangled in the political landscape of Ireland, especially during the growing English colonization efforts under Tudor rule. She butted heads with English officials constantly, especially Sir Richard Bingham, the brutal governor of Western Ireland. Bingham accused Grace of being a rebel leader and enemy of the crown, and he wasn't wrong, though her resistance was more nuanced. She hated the English occupation, yes, but she was also pragmatic. In 1593, when Bingham arrested her sons and seized her lands, she boldly sailed to London and requested an audience with Queen Elizabeth I herself. This wasn't just a publicity stunt, it was a calculated political gamble. The meeting reportedly took place in Latin, since neither woman wanted to speak the other's native tongue. Grace was able to negotiate the release of her sons and some degree of restoration of her lands, subject to her ceasing hostilities with the English, at this famous summit between two of the most powerful women in their respective kingdoms. It's worth noting that Grace refused to kneel before Elizabeth, not recognizing her authority over Ireland. Elizabeth, impressed or perhaps simply unwilling to make another enemy, acquiesced. Grace, however, continued to resist. Though she played nice on the surface, she continued to walk a fine line, occasionally assisting English interests when it suited her, lending them ships or men, but always keeping one hand on her sword. After Bingham's brother John deceived her son Owen into leaving his castle and then killed him, she was not a friend of the English. That act alone might have derailed a lesser leader, but Grace pressed on. She also became a figure of vengeance and legend. She allegedly rescued a shipwrecked man, fell in love with him, and took him as a lover between her two marriages at one point. Grace retaliated by storming one of her enemies' castles, executing the murderers, and claiming the fortress as her own after the McMahon clan killed him while he was hunting. The act was more than just retaliation. It was also a display of power, strength, and strategic skill. She didn't just sit back and cry, she declared war. In the years that followed, she maintained control of vast maritime territory, balancing the cutthroat politics of Ireland's fractious clans with her own ambitions and hatred of colonialism. Yet she wasn't just a brute or warmonger. She was educated, said to speak Latin fluently, and could use diplomacy when violence wasn't an option. She was a shrewd businesswoman and leader who managed to maintain power in a time when women were expected to be silent, obedient, and thoroughly domestic. While the English painted her as a villain and criminal, to the Irish she became a legend. She was said to have intrigued even Sir Philip Sidney, one of the most well-known Elizabethan poets. She was known across Ireland by nicknames like Chieftainess of the O'Malleys, and more enduringly, the Pirate Queen. Despite the fact that the English crown considered her an outlaw, she is still remembered as a symbol of Irish independence and feminine strength. Her life, shrouded in equal parts fact and legend, speaks to a woman who refused to accept the limitations of her gender, her era, or her oppressors. She gave birth on the deck of a ship, fought in naval battles, commanded castles, survived political betrayals, faced off with monarchs, loved fiercely, lost deeply, and left behind a legacy that refuses to die, even if history textbooks tried their hardest to forget her. In many ways, Grace O'Malley was the Irish Boudica, the female Blackbeard, and the pirate Jeanne d'Arc all rolled into one. She wasn't just a pirate, she was a political operative, maritime mogul, wartime strategist, and rebel queen. She turned the tides of battle, outwitted her enemies, and ruled the seas with a steel heart and sharp mind. And while popular pirate lore remains dominated by tales of swashbuckling men, buried treasure and drunken antics, the real treasure is the story of Grace O'Malley, a woman whose sword was as sharp as her tongue, whose ambition outpaced most men of her time, and whose legend deserves to be shouted from every coastal cliff in Ireland and beyond. The fact that so few people today have heard of her isn't just a historical oversight, it's a cultural tragedy. Because Grace O'Malley, the unstoppable pirate queen of Ireland, is the only pirate who deserves to be a household name. Grace O'Malley, the untold story of history's most fearsome pirate queen. In the golden age of piracy, when men like Blackbeard and Captain Kidd dominated the seas, one woman rose to become the most formidable pirate of them all. Grace O'Malley, the Pirate Queen of Ireland. Born in 1530 into the powerful O'Malley clan of County Mayo, Grace, or Grain Neem Hale in Irish, was no ordinary noblewoman. She was a chieftain, a naval commander, a rebel, and a legend. A woman who defied the English crown, commanded fleets, and even negotiated face-to-face with Queen Elizabeth I. While most pirates were outlaws, Grace was a political force, fighting to protect Irish independence against Tudor England's encroaching rule. Her life was a saga of naval battles, castle sieges, daring escapes, and ruthless revenge. Yet today few know her name. To rule the seas-born Grace O'Malley did not come out on top. Her father, Owen Black Oak O'Malley, was a chieftain whose clan dominated Western Ireland's coast. The O'Malleys were seafaring warriors, living by the motto Terra Americae Potens, powerful by land and sea. From childhood, Grace learned navigation, trade, and the art of piracy, which was essentially the family business. The legend of the boy pirate. According to Irish folklore, young Grace begged to sail with her father but was refused because she was a girl. Undeterred, she chopped off her hair, dressed as a boy, and stowed away on his ship. When her father discovered her, he was so impressed by her courage that he let her stay, beginning her life at sea. Married twice. For power, not love. Grace was a strategist in politics and marriage. First marriage, 1546 at 16, she wed Donal O'Flaherty, heir to another powerful Irish clan. Through him, she gained military experience and 3 children. When he was killed in battle, his men refused to follow anyone but Grace. Second marriage, 1566, she married Richard Iron Dick Burke, a rival lord, solely to claim his castle. After a year, she divorced him by shouting out a window, "Richard Burke, I dismiss you," then kept his fortress. 3. Gave birth mid-battle, then led the fight. One of Grace's most legendary feats happened while she was in labor. In 1567, heavily pregnant, she was commanding a fleet when Algerian corsairs attacked. She gave birth to her son, Tibet, below deck. She stormed back to the deck an hour later, wrapped her infant, rallied her crew, and defeated the adversary. For the pirate queen's navy, Grace didn't just raid ships, she controlled the seas. Ships were taxed. She imposed a toll on ships passing through her territory. Those who refused were boarded and looted. Fortified castles. Used coastal strongholds like Rockfleet Castle as pirate bases. Fought the English. When England raised taxes, Grace ignored them and kept plundering. 5. Avenged her lover's murder with a castle siege. After her first husband's death, Grace took a lover, Hugh de Lacy, a shipwrecked nobleman. When a rival clan murdered him, Grace hunted down the killers, slaughtered them, then stormed their castle, Duna, and claimed it for herself. 6. Kidnapped an English lord's grandson for revenge. Grace's feud with Sir Richard Bingham, England's brutal governor in Ireland, was legendary. Her son Owen was hanged by Bingham, who also took her land. In retaliation, Grace captured his nephew and held him hostage until Bingham backed off. 7. Met Queen Elizabeth I, and refused to bow. In 1593, Grace sailed to England to negotiate with Elizabeth I. Spoke in Latin, since Grace refused to speak English. Demanded her son's release and her stolen lands back. Refused to kneel, declaring she acknowledged no queen but Ireland. Elizabeth agreed to her terms, proving even the Virgin Queen respected the pirate queen. 8. A folk heroine and symbol of Irish resistance. Grace O'Malley wasn't just a pirate, she was a rebel icon. Inspired ballads. Irish songs still celebrate her exploits. Defied gender norms. In a man's world, she ruled as an equal. Fought colonialism. Resisted England's conquest until her death, 1603. Why history forgot her and why she's back. Grace was erased from English records, but modern Ireland reclaims her as a national hero. She wasn't just a pirate, she was a mother, a warlord, a diplomat, and a legend. The next time someone mentions pirates, remember Grace O'Malley, the woman who out-pirated them all.